Hi everyone, it's Matt Lockaby. I'm the managing partner at Lockaby PLLC here in Lexington, Kentucky, and we have another video for you today about the ins and outs of mergers and acquisitions. Was having coffee just a few weeks ago with a prospective client who was considering and evaluating their first acquisition. This is a really exciting time, but also lots of concerns, lots of fears about the unknown. But one of the things they were really concerned about was how they protect themselves after they've agreed upon a purchase price to ensure that everything after the closing is as the seller has represented it to be. And one of the things we talked about was an earnout. And this was a concept or a deal structure, or an aspect of deal structure rather, that this individual was unfamiliar with. So great topic for today to talk about earnouts, what they are, how they're used, and how they can benefit everybody in these types of transactions. So what is an earnout? Well, it's a part of a deal structure where a portion of the purchase price is deferred and not paid until some point after closing. Usually it's contingent upon the business meeting certain financial or operational or other metrics that the parties agree on. A most common example would be, let's say the purchase price for a business was $1.25 million. And the buyer was going to pay $1 million at closing, but the remaining $250,000 was going to be deferred till some point afterward, maybe 12, maybe 18 months later, and would be contingent upon the business meeting certain metrics. That, in essence, is an earnout. Now, why would earnouts be used? Why do buyers want them? And why would sellers actually agree to them? In M&A transactions, buyers and sellers sometimes disagree over what the business is worth, and an earnout is a way to bridge that gap. So seller thinks the business is worth X, buyer thinks the business is worth 20, 30% less. That earnout can be a way for the parties to reach an agreement on that total purchase price, but condition part of the price on the business's performance after closing. For buyers, this makes a lot of sense. It can reduce the risk that they're overpaying in the transaction. For sellers, it means that they're getting more than they would otherwise receive, at least from this particular buyer. As wonderful as an earnout can be to help the parties reach a deal, get to closing, there are some concerns on both sides with how these earnouts are negotiated. From the seller's perspective, look, a buyer takes control of the business after closing. The buyer's running the business, the buyer's making those day-to-day ordinary business decisions. And some of those decisions, operating expenditures, capital expenditures, even the integration of the business into a larger company, can have an impact on whether or when that earnout is going to be paid. So one of the first things that the parties in these transactions are going to explore or negotiate is the metrics against which the earnout will be measured and paid. Some common metrics include gross revenue, gross profit, EBITDA, net income. For some industries and some deals, customer retention might be applicable, or the renewal of certain key or material contracts might be important. Regardless of the deal, regardless of the business, regardless of the industry, what's important is that these negotiations are held and that these objective metrics for measuring business performance that will trigger the earnout payment are negotiated and clearly included in the purchase agreement. Each of these metrics we've talked about, they all have their pros and cons, right? Gross revenue is pretty easy to measure, but it doesn't really capture underlying profitability. EBITDA is maybe a better measure of profitability, but from a seller's perspective, EBITDA can be pretty easily manipulated or adjusted by a buyer, whether that's in good faith or not. So again, what the best way to measure financial or business performance is in any particular deal is going to come down to that particular business, maybe the industry in which it's operating, and other deal terms itself. At the end of the day, looking big picture at all of this, right? An earnout is just a way to allocate risk between the parties. And your purchase agreement overall has a variety of ways that the parties can allocate risk. The earnout is one of them. And picking the right metric or set of metrics to measure business performance will be key for this particular earnout payment. In addition to considering the metrics against which the earnout payment's going to be measured, you also have to consider just how it's going to be calculated. Is it calculated on a monthly or quarterly or annual basis? Are there any minimum thresholds? Are there any caps? A variety of things that we need to consider in terms of how the payment, how the earnout is going to be calculated. Bottom line, earnouts can be a tremendous tool for getting buyers and sellers to the finish line and closing a deal, but only if they're used correctly. The best earnouts are specific, they're measurable, and they're realistic. And there's a clear wording of how they work, when they work, what the metrics are, and how they're calculated that's in the purchase agreement itself. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, give us a like and hit the subscribe button to get more lower middle market M&A insights in the future. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We'll see you next time.